Now, continuing with the tumors of the nasopharynx, we will be discussing about nasopharyngeal carcinoma now. Nasopharyngeal carcinoma is the more common among Chinese and Southeast Asians, the male to female ratio being 3 is to 1. It usually affects 15 to 19 years of age or 35 to 65 years of age. The predisposing factors are basically genetic factors, viral, that is Epstein-Barr virus, environmental factors being tobacco smoking, salted fish and preservative vegetables, incense stick smoke, household and industrial fumes, or wood dust. Coming to epidemiology of nasopharyngeal carcinoma, it basically is seen in Chinese native people. Even in it's seen more in Chinese native than in Chinese immigrants than the North American natives. Both it has got genetic and environmental factors. Genetic being it has an HLA histocompatibility and specific loci are present. The environmental factors are basically the viruses, that is Epstein-Barr virus. It has a well-documented viral fingerprint in tumor cells, and in type 2 and type 3 type of nasopharyngeal carcinomas, basically. Human papilloma virus is possible factor in type 1 of nasopharyngeal carcinoma. Nitrosamines from the salted fish, like basically these Cantonese people, they eat salted fish a lot, so that is one of the main causes. Vitamin C deficiency can lead to nasopharyngeal carcinomas. Other factors being polycyclic hydrocarbons, chronic nasal infection, poor hygiene or poor ventilation. Coming to the genetics, it's basically HLA linked. There's chromosomal deletions and translocations. Short arm of chromosome 6 has 6 loci, that is HLA A, B, C, D, R, D, Q, and D, S. So depending on the HLA, we have their types of survival, like HLA AW19 and B17. They have short-term survival, whereas HLA A2, BW46, they have intermediate term survival. Whereas HLA A2 without BW46 and B17, they have a long-term survival. Age and the sex distribution. Age is basically there is a bimodal distribution. Peak age being fourth decade in Chinese and sixth decade in non-Chinese. Sex is basically the males, more in males than females, Chinese, and 2 is to 1 in non-Chinese. Classification, um, basically we have type 1. Type 1 nasopharyngeal carcinoma is basically the squamous cell carcinoma. It is 25% of all the nasopharyngeal carcinomas. Moderate to well differentiated cells, which is similar to squamous cell carcinoma. Typically, they have this keratin pearls, intracellular bridges, and increased nuclear to cytoplasmic ratios, but the consistent sizes of the nuclei. Type 2 is basically non-keratinizing carcinoma. It is 12% of the nasopharyngeal carcinomas. They have variable differentiation of cells and they have minimal keratin production, and they basically resemble transitional cell carcinomas of the bladder. Type 3 is undifferentiated carcinoma. 60% of the nasopharyngeal carcinomas, majority of nasopharyngeal carcinoma in young patients. Classic appearance of a lymphoepithelioma with difficult to distinguish squamous cancer cells in the background. Lymphoepitheliomas, spindle cells, clear cells, and anaplastic variants. Coming to the clinical features of nasopharyngeal carcinoma, we have the commonest presentation is upper neck swelling. Cervical lymphadenopathy in 75% of the cases, as you can see. 30% present with nasal symptoms like bloodstained nasal discharge, nasal obstruction, postnasal drip of frank epistaxis. 20% of them they have oral symptoms like deafness, tinnitus, and talgia. Because of its and one point which I forgot to tell you is that tumor arises from the fossa of Rosenmuller, that is behind the eustachian tube opening. So when that near the fossa of Rosenmuller, so it is very close to the eustachian tube opening. So basically, when that gets obstructed, we get this retracted tympanic membrane or otitis media with effusion. 20% of the symptoms are neurological, like headache, cranial nerve involvement. Headache being 20%, referred pain. Basically, it's a referred pain because if the trigeminal nerve is invaded by the tumor, so you patient presently presents with headache. And also, if the tumor has gone and eroded the skull base, you can present with headache. Cranial nerve symptoms starts to develop when the various foramens are involved, like cranial 5, cranial 6 can be involved, or cranial 3 to 6, depending on if the cavernous sinus is involved. Other clinical features being trismus, that is, if the nasopharyngeal carcinoma involves the pterygoids, you will get trismus. Proptosis occurs if it extends through the orbit, eroding the lamina papyracea into the orbit, and if systemic presentation, if due to widespread metastasis. Diagnosis is basically by history, clinical examination, examination of the nasopharynx, and biopsy of the nasopharynx. History. History has a vague complaints. Basically, there is a hearing loss, tinnitus, ear block, nasal obstruction, and bloodstained nasal discharge. Advanced cases, there may be a neck lump or a cranial nerve involvement. Familial clustering is around 10%. Coming to examination, head and neck examination, neck nodes, ear examination, otitis media with effusion, cranial nerve examination, cranial nerve 3, 4, 5, 9, 10, 11. When you look into the nasopharynx, this is basically a diagnostic nasal endoscopy picture. You see a mass, if you can see, this is the diagnostic nasal endoscopy, and you can see the septum here. This is the floor of the nasal cavity. This is the nasopharynx. You can see a mass with abnormal capillaries on the surface with areas of ulceration. So basically, this is the tumor. See, biopsy of the nasopharynx. One is you give a topical anesthesia and a diagnostic nasal endoscopy is done to look at the site of the tumor. See, like you can see, basically it's in the fossa of Rosenmuller, so multiple deep biopsies can be taken. Indications are metastatic neck nodes with unknown primary, persistent raised tumor markers with nasopharynx. And if there's inconclusive biopsy, these are the things when you can take multiple deep biopsies. Lab tests, laboratory, we can look for antibodies of the Epstein-Barr virus, IgA anti-VCA, IgA anti-EA, EBV nuclear antigen 1. Plasma EBV DNA titer can be done, like DNA shed into the bloodstream during cell turnover. It's used as a marker of NPC. It is superior to EBV serology. Quantitative PCR and diagnostic screening has prognostic implications. Imaging, you can identify the site of the biopsy of a submucosal tumor. Tumor staging can be done, radiotherapy planning, and post-treatment monitoring of the disease. In a CT, you can see the tumor mass, submucosal disease, its local extension, bony erosion of the skull base or the vertebral bodies. You can look into this CT picture where there is a nasopharyngeal carcinoma which has gone and involved multiple, it has gone behind the nasopharynx, nasal cavity into the maxilla. These are the various things it is showing. Now MRI is done to evaluate the primary tumor and its direct local spread. It delineates from the parapharyngeal extension of the tumor, perineural spread and marrow infiltration. It defines the limits of optic chiasmus, optic nerve and the brainstem. It can tell you regarding the involvement of the paranasal sinuses and differentiates it from the mucus from the tumor, and monitoring the disease after treatment and imaging recurrent disease. Basically MRI is done to, because it is tumor itself is a soft tissue, we can delineate it from the other soft tissues, like I have told earlier, same case in JNA. And then if it can differentiate from the mucus and other things. So if you look into this picture, you can see this is, see how different the tumor mass looks like. Like if you look into the nasal, this is the maxillary sinus, which is empty. This is air, and then you see the secretions. Secretion will present like this. This is the particular tumor which is come from the nasopharynx and it's going. Ultrasound is done of the and FNAC of the neck nodes is to be done. Neck nodes are there to check if they are metastatic nodes. Then we can do a PET scan. See, the regarding PET scan, I'll tell you. See, it is basically this is a picture of a PET scan. You can see if you do a CT, you can see the tumor, but it's not particularly visible. But then when you do a PET scan, the tumor cells are high. There is a high uptake of fluorodeoxyglucose. As a result, they due to the electron in that the positron which has been given in the PET, it lightens up these areas which are high yielding areas. Basically, this is the primary and the nodes which you cannot see in a normal CT. So that is why a PET scan is to be done. Now coming to the staging of the disease, we all know regarding TNM staging. T describes the tumor as per se. Tx means that primary tumor we cannot assess the tumor. T0 means there is no tumor, and TIS means the carcinoma in situ. Now grading T1, that is tumor is confined to the nasopharynx or extension into the oropharynx or the nasal cavity without any parapharyngeal involvement. T2 is when the tumor with extension to the parapharyngeal space or adjacent soft tissue involvement like medial pterygoid, lateral pterygoid or the prevertebral muscles. T3 is tumor with infiltration of bony structures such as skull base, cervical vertebrae, pterygoid structures or the paranasal sinuses. In T4, tumor with intracranial extension, involvement of the cranial nerves, hypopharynx, orbit, parotid, and or extensive soft tissue infiltration beyond the lateral surface of the lateral pterygoid muscle. Regional lymph nodes, if NX is there, the regional lymph nodes cannot be assessed. N0 means there is no metastasis. N1 means there is a unilateral metastasis in a cervical lymph node, 6 cm or smaller in its greater dimension above the supraclavicular fossa. N2 is when there is bilateral metastasis in the cervical lymph node, which is 6 cm or smaller in its greater dimension above the supraclavicular fossa. N3 is metastasis into a lymph node which is more than 6 cm and or involves the supraclavicular fossa. So if the lymph node is more than 6, invariably it becomes N3 if it's ipsilateral or bilateral. Distant metastasis, M0 means there is no metastasis, M1 means there is metastasis. Treatment, unlike GNA, here treatment is basically a radiotherapy because it's a highly radiosensitive tumor. In advanced cases, we can give chemotherapy also. And if the normal radio and chemotherapy fails, then we can look for surgery. So surgery is not the first option in nasopharyngeal carcinoma. Radiotherapy, we have external radiotherapy given through two lateral opposing and one anterior feed. Nasopharynx on both sides of the neck are covered, uninterrupted 5 or 6 daily sessions per week for total of 6 weeks. Basically stage 1 and 2 we think radiotherapy, whereas for stage 3 and 4B we think about chemo with radiotherapy. In chemotherapy, radiosensitizer and reduces the incidence of distant metastasis. Cisplatin is basically given at 30 to 40 milligrams per meter square weekly. A neoadjuvant chemotherapy is what you do is you give the you give the chemo in the first time. That is, you first give chemo, reduce the bulk of the neck nodes of the tumor, and then you give radiotherapy. So that it's called neoadjuvant chemotherapy. Concurrent chemoradiation is when significant on a progression, that is, along with the radiotherapy, chemotherapy is given simultaneously. And the complications of chemo being it can cause bone marrow suppression, sensory neural hearing loss, renal impairment, and accentuates the complications of radiotherapy. Surgical approaches which is rarely done, that is inferior approach transpalatal, just like in JNA, and anterior approach is midfacial degloving, Anterolateral approach is maxillary swing or lateral rhinotomy with maxillectomy, and lateral approach being lateral skull base approach. Thank you.